John, I'm glad to see that you're in good health, good spirits. I know we tried to connect before and things got a little bit crazy.
Yeah, the human body be that way sometimes, unfortunately. But I appreciate you making room for me to come back and make good on my promise for giving you a decent interview, a complete interview, one without medical issues.
That's the hope. I mean, I've been experiencing my fair share of them with chronic illness. It's just a part of life. And really, it's all about taking the reins and, deciding that that illness is going to live with you instead of the other way around.
Yeah, my uh I've been doing with my mental illness. I struggle with depression and anxiety, and recently me and my wife adopted a second husky. So I've gotten very attuned to being outdoors lately because my dogs are very active. They're high energy animals. They're actually outdoors with me right now, um, enjoying the weather because it's nice out, but it's a little too hot for them still. They're just hanging out in the shade, and now they're sniffing the fence because my neighbor's dog's out.
Nice. It's really because I've dealt with mental health of my own for probably as long as I can remember. And it's all about finding a space that's natural, that's comfortable for you to really begin to deal with it.
Yeah, absolutely. Me and my wife both kind of fell into the whole meditation crowd. I've been doing social media streaming for the last 5 years, and doing that, you find yourself on this doorstep of a lot of different walks of life. And one of the ones we fell in love with was people who are into meditation, mindfulness, and getting out into nature and actually grounding. My wife found out through them that we're both very different people. I'm more of an earth type. I like to go for walks because um, my medical condition does not keep me from going on lengthy walks. My wife, on the other hand, suffers from POTS syndrome. She can't really walk for very long. I think about a half a mile is her longest distance lately, but she loves the water. Now I like the water too, so we found a nice place that we can take like a nice half a mile walk in to the park and bring the dogs. They can run through the rivers and stuff like that, and it's been a restorative experience.
Here's the part that I really love about that is the fact that, when we do unfortunately pick up an illness that we're carrying the rest of our lives and we got to manage, a lot of the time we let that become our narrative. We let that become who we are. And we forget that we still have the option to step outside of the story that comes with that illness and actually live life and really embrace the environment and the world around us. We can still have our journey and enjoy it.
Absolutely. In fact, one of my friends who lives in California turned me on to a device, world-changing device for him. His daughter suffers from, sorry, she's not really good for walking long distance, and really he had a harness where he was carrying her, but she's getting older. This new device is like a come along that she could sit in, hooks up to his backpack so he can hike, and she remains comfortable. And I was like, I mean, if it gets to that point, my wife wants to go to places where there's like she wants to hike up a mountain and she can't do that, but I can. I'm a good pack mule, so I'll definitely put on my harness. Let's go. I could drag her along.
It's all about that old adage, if there's a will, there's a way,
Absolutely.
which is really which is one of those things that I feel like a lot of the time we lose the idea because we get caught up in the stories. We get caught up in the difficulties of it.
I have been quoting um Back to the Future for the last like 2 months. Simple words. If you put your mind to it, you can accomplish anything. George McFly, really smart man. I mean, those words are something I carried from the '80s, and that's exactly what it is. Like you said, you can definitely make a chronic illness an epic journey. It's just about mindset.
It is, and as I think about that, a lot of the time we overcomplicate things because we get stuck in our heads. That prevents us from doing it. If you simplify things and you just look at, okay, this is the core of what I got to do, and you deconstruct that, figure out the principles and the elements you need to do it, it's it's not limiting. You know, the world is still your oyster.
Exactly. So shuck it.
Exactly. That's one of the things about, what brought us together in talking about your book last time. It really, after I thought about it after the fact, I was like, it's one of those things that, like we just like we just said, we overcomplicate everything, and we look for
Yeah.
ways to fuel the narrative by putting the responsibility somewhere else. If you deconstruct all
Hmm.
that and you look at the narrative, you look at the story, you realize that you still have autonomy no matter what the set of obstacles may be in front of you, whether it's mental health, it's a chronic illness, or whatever the case may be.
Absolutely. I mean, I've recently spoken to a few of the people who've read my book, and finding those inspirational moments from my readers has really been life changing in the last couple weeks since we spoke last. I had a mother reach out to me because her son, 30 years old, suffers from a brain injury at birth and has a touch of autism, sees himself in the character, and connected with the book in ways that she didn't think he would. He actually sleeps with the book every night because he thinks the book is written about him. And I mean that's exactly what happened. The book, I overcomplicated a simple situation and gave a pictorial, you know, way to fix yourself. And this one reader, whether I hit anybody else, this one reader connected with it in a way that I didn't think would be possible.
Yeah, that's a beautiful story because, I think about my motivation for what I do and the fact that I started doing this because I happened to stumble onto a podcast that I feel was kind of put together and fell on my lap in the moment because of things that I was going through. And it's that one unique connection that fills the heart with joy and motivates us to go forward. But more importantly, for the listener or the reader, it becomes a framework.
Right. Absolutely. And it starts conversations that may not have started organically. And that's the whole point of my book being it's got a slightly higher age range. Kids under the age of 11 are going to struggle with it because of the verbiage. But that's where parenting comes in, and it brings it back to the basics of us in the 80s, our parents reading stories to us at night, explaining words to us so we understood what's going on. Um, and I've had some of those experiences with parents as well. They really enjoy reading the book to their kids, and their kids ask questions. It's starting conversations at home, even if it's asking, "What does this mean?" If I'm getting parents and children to have conversations that aren't about their schoolwork or what they did wrong, then the book's doing good in the world.
That's really all you can ask for. I mean, it's those conversation starters that we all need in life. If we're going to go forward, it's about sometimes humbling yourself, picking up a new form of media or listening to a conversation that's happening off in the distance with an open mind and an open heart and just exploring it.
Yeah, and I mean, I have been every different way of listening to conversations, being the conversation, having the conversation, and it's always different. That's the beautiful thing. I love having these different conversations.
They're a lot of fun. I have them all the time. And, even this morning, I was having this conversation and we were talking about some different spirituality aspects and how they came about and then how they're interpreted in today's world. And that all started over just staring at an eagle. And, at an eagle recovery center that they were taking care of. But as we watched and observed, we started just exploring that idea and not only the enjoyment and engagement of a conversation, but more importantly, the things that you take away that you think about afterward are so important for you to really just consider.
Yeah. I mean, I've had some I've had some interesting interactions in the last couple of years that led me to wanting to write a book. Because I mean, I didn't really like. I'm not an author. I mean, I am an author now, but I wasn't always an author. I was that kid in school who didn't pay attention in class. My notebooks looked like sketchbooks because that's what they were for me. I just doodled. I didn't write notes, and I learned a lot of hard life experiences in my younger years. It's what shaped me to be who I am, but not growing up saying I love books led me to write the book the way I wrote it. I want it to be for people who don't like to read. It's thin. It's 54 pages. It's a quick 30-minute read, but it's also a coloring book so that you can take that story, connect with it, keep on reading it, and color in each of the cells like you want it to. You, Mike, you might paint your guy. You might make your robot green. You might actually make your skies pinks and purples. I might sit there and say, you know what? I'm having a blue and yellow kind of day, and I think the robot's going to look green in that. And we have totally different aspects of how we're going to approach this project, but we both can have the same experience differently.
It's that uniqueness to the journey that I feel like as a reader or somebody that's engaging in life, we kind of skip over the ability to take autonomy over the footsteps that we take. We want to push it off on everybody else and give them the power and control because it removes the responsibility within us
Mm-hmm.
for our own journey. And that's a real sticking block when it comes to progressing in life. Because in order to stumble onto your purpose, you have to be willing to embrace the uniqueness of your journey, which comes through taking responsibility for the different things that you do, the things you interact with, and how you carry yourself.
Yeah, and you know what's crazy is as far as finding purpose goes, I started this journey 5 years ago trying to start my art business when I got terminated from my retail job. But the book kind of focused my business, like everything I'm doing now finally feels like I have a purpose. And I wouldn't have gotten there if I didn't have the last 5 years. But now that I have that little bit of validity, like I'm trying to find ways to adapt it because it's got to be ever living. This project keep moving forward. This way, it doesn't drop off. I like this. I like this project way too much to let it go away.
No, absolutely. I think that's one of the most important parts of this conversation when it comes to looking for purpose in life is to just embrace the way that it flows. You can't force it. You can't push it. You can't wake up one day and say, I want to be this and I want to be that. It kind of falls on you. And then you just got to allow yourself that freedom to open up and follow the process.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I had some pretty low points with my artwork where I felt like I was just talking to a black mirror because I was online trying to promote my stuff, and you start feeling worthless when you don't start getting responses, when you start seeing comments that are less than cordial, you know. Um, and I thought that I had very thick skin, but you start realizing after you hit it for a while that thickness starts to thin, and eventually there's some words that penetrate, but if it isn't for the hard times, you can't appreciate the good times. So I'm thankful for all the hate that I was thrown in the first 4 years because this year is my building year. This is the year where we are no longer in the building process. We are launching. We're in flight, you know?
I can relate a lot to that because, regardless of the medium or the avenue that you're trying to pursue, whether that's, social media, trying to do things like this, or just in work in general, you got to realize that there's a big picture and you embrace it, you hold on to it. But then between where you start and where that big picture leads, there's a hell of a journey that's involved. There's going to be setbacks, and you got to give yourself some grace to embrace it because those are the the times that you truly grow.
Absolutely. And I have always tried to take these moments to find a way to build community. I've found in the last 5 years that if you can build a community around something, it has a higher rate of success, you know? So with that, recently got all my coworkers at the local Michaels super excited about my book. My boss let me hang a poster in the break room so everybody knows about it and I can advertise it there. But now I'm also taking on this massive project because the morale in my store is so low. And there's not really a whole lot we can do for the employees in the way of saying, hey, let's go out and have a nature day. We don't close the store down for mental health. But that's like my main goal. So I'm trying to find something to make these people feel a little bit better about being at work. And I found a great project. I am now the head of our store's arts and crafts project. Found a 4 foot by 4 foot canvas, and I'm gonna take everyone's ideas and build a 4 foot by 4 foot paint by number that everyone in the store gets to add their colors to and tell their story as a team.
That's a really cool idea. I mean, I think that's something that, yeah, even though it's a great practice as a group, it's also a great practice individually. And whether that's through
It
artistic
is.
ways, whether it's drawing, journaling, whatever it is, just lean into it for even a few minutes a day because it gives you a reference point. You know, a lot of the way that I
Exactly.
pursue things, a lot of my pursuits are through fact based evidence, you know, with the idea that every thought we have is simply a hypothesis and you have to dissect it,
Mhm.
find the facts to prove it to be true or untrue. And that's exactly what you're doing through journaling, whether it's with words or with art.
Right. And that's what I want to do. I want everyone to tell a little bit of their story in this canvas so that they show up to work, they go, I was part of that. That's cool. And I want the new people to come in and say, I can't wait for us to do the next project like this because I want to be part of that too. It's going to also inspire the community that comes into my store to start leaning onto my team a little bit. We do actually create in these stores. We don't just show up to sell items, you know? Uh, Creativity, like you said, journaling, video blogging, vlogging, or just typing a blog up yourself or doing what I do, painting. It all tells a story. And when you get a couple people telling the same story on the same canvas, it turns into a really awesome. It's something more than a story. It becomes an epic tale, you know.
It becomes more than that, though. It becomes a way to connect. And in today's
Yes,
world, there's a lot of us that struggle with disconnection. You know, it's always just let's go from one task to the next as quick as we can with our head down and not looking around at everything that's around us. And then when we do finally stop for the day, we feel empty. You know, we may have family around us, we may have friends around us, but there's that emptiness, the connection, because we're not taking the time to truly embrace it or celebrate it.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, I get that because working in retail, I watch people walk up to my self checkouts and I'll tell them, hey, I can take you right over here. I like that. I crave that human interaction at work. Not a lot of people do. I like dealing with people, you know? So I try to call them over and they'll say to me, no, I'm good. I'd rather bring myself up. And I go, wow, like how bad is your day that you'd rather look at a screen than have a person, you know? Like it makes me think of the movie Demolition Man, I think it is. Yeah, Demolition Man with Sylvester Stallone. When they go to the future and the people call the police and it says, if you'd like to speak to an automated system, please press one. Like, who would choose that? But we choose that nowadays.
That we do. You know, it's really weird though when you think about the concept of movies and storytelling in general, how we almost prophesize what's going to come on down
Right?
the line. And, you know, I think applying that to the idea of journaling or just being artistic at all, expressing yourself one way or another, you have the power to almost manifest your future. You can start
Oh, I
with a
play
simple
God.
idea. Exactly. It's funny because my wife recently picked up one of my journals and was looking at it and read a couple of pages, and she was really confused. She goes, "Why do you write the way that you do?" And I'm like, "Because I'm having a conversation with myself. I'm playing both sides of the conversation. There's me expressing how I feel while quote unquote looking across the table at somebody else who's dissecting how I feel." And that's how you really begin to understand yourself.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Because again, dipping back to the 5 years mark when I started on this, I was the guy that just painted licensed characters. I did Star Wars paintings. Disney. I was looking for Disney to take me to court on a daily basis. Um, now, now I'm producing stuff that came from my heart, that came from my soul. It's hit my brain and stuck me so long that my fingers have finally pushed it out for the rest of the world to see. And I don't miss doing other people's work. I thought I would. I thought the whole concept of doing real original art was scary because I mean, who looks for original stuff anymore? Now everyone wants the same old damn thing, you know. But um, I'm finding the comfort in embracing that scariness and jumping into the wilderness because it worked. It worked.
I think that's an interesting point too. Where that's worth dissection because in the practice of doing somebody else's art and redoing and redoing and redoing, you're practicing. You're building your voice by perfecting how to do these different techniques and everything. And I think about my journal and that conversation thing and consider just how much growth has truly come just from practicing having those conversations with myself. And that's how you build a voice.
Yeah, and I've used my voice to try and get people to listen, and some people have. Some people really have. Um, it's been nice to know that I have helped some people with what I do because it wasn't what I originally set out to do. I originally set out to make money and take over the world. But we don't live in the 80s anymore where everyone has to do that. It's more of an emotional conquering. I feel like self mastery is more important than financial mastery. I mean, financial mastery would be great, but at the end of the day, I can look myself in the mirror and whether I'm broke or I'm well off, I know that what I'm doing makes a difference in the world. I leave my mark. When I die, there's going to be a legacy left behind. Not a whole lot of people are going to know me, but some people will say, you know, what he was doing, that was cool. Someone else needs to keep that going. And that's how movements start.
It is, those individual movements. I mean, we all get caught up in the financial aspect of life, without a doubt.
Absolutely.
The challenge within that is to balance it, to find, hey, okay, this is where I got to be in order to meet my monthly demands. However, there's so much more of me that I can invest into meaningful things. And
Right.
when you invest yourself into the things that mean a lot to you, that's how you build an identity. It's how you break away from the pack and you become the person that ultimately you were put here to be.
Absolutely. And one of the most empowering things I've done with that new me that now exists is I'm going backwards with it. I have been throwing my artwork, I've been throwing my book, I've been throwing my philosophy at the people I graduated high school with lately a lot. We just recently did our high school reunion, so everybody reconnected. We all, you know, got back on each other's Facebook pages and started feeding each other. So I have been talking because I realized that I had a child at 19 years old. The rest of my classmates went off to college, started careers. I'm doing that now. So I'm just doing my phase in life that they've already gone through, and they're going through a phase in life that I find myself to be more of an expert on. I've got a 19-year-old and I've got a 22-year-old. I don't have children, I have adults. They all have kids that are like my demographic for my book now. So I found an audience, and I just kind of started self-feeding my audience, and it's bringing some people that I didn't talk to in high school that thought I was kind of an idiot, kind of overlooked me. They're starting to look at me in a different light and going, "Wow, deep thought from someone I wouldn't think thinks deep."
That's the progression of life, though. That's when you're willing to humble yourself and admit that there's always something out there to learn. There's always a
Yes,
new challenge that you can overcome. And by embracing those new challenges, you constantly get to redefine yourself. Life is one of those things that it invites change all the time. Whether
it
you're
does.
willing, whether you're willing or unwilling, it's there. And all it asks is for you to participate.
24 years ago, I was in a car accident that claimed my left eye. I have limited use of my left eye. It's got no left peripheral vision. It's 2100, so vision out of it is very blurry at best. If I close my bad eye, I just see my phone. I couldn't even see you on the screen. But yet, I make a living from visual art. Just to articulate the point you said, that story articulates that point perfectly. That you can take any disability and turn it into a strength.
And I think that really sings to the beginning of this conversation. The fact that regardless of what you're facing, where you've been, who you think you are now, it doesn't define you. It's all about taking the time to embrace all of those things in a positive light. And you build that through taking time to embrace things like mindfulness, meditation, being active, and really being a willing and active and participant in your journey.
Hello. They just ran up to me. They needed to say hello. They forgot I was back here.
Sometimes that's the way opportunities pop up into your life, which really
Yep.
brings to mind a great quote from Seneca that opportunity or chance is really just when fate and preparation meet. That's opportunity because you've already prepared for the things that pop up in your life.
Absolutely.
So, hey, John, as we start to kind of wind things down, I want to give you some time to talk about your book, let people know how to get it and get in touch with you, all those good things.
So, like I have said throughout this, the book is called Bolt Voltage Out of Sync. It's about a robot that exists in a post-apocalyptic human or post-human world. Humans have left the robots, the planet, and they're tracking how nature reclaims the Earth in our absence. One day, Bolt glitches and starts feeling emotions. Has to figure out how to get through his day, dealing with things like stress, anxiety, self-doubt, and he deals with identity as well. It teaches the reader kind of how to appreciate the way nature can really break down what we've built and the strength that Mother Nature has to change even the most resolute of things, a machine. Kind of like, ironically themed for June, Men's Mental Health Month, we are expected to be stoic, unfazed machines that don't feel. My robot calls on to my brothers to say that it's okay to feel your feelings, to have emotions, and to express that. There's nothing wrong with that part. You have to be able to express those emotions because if you don't, you can manifest some serious illness in your body, and it kind of blocks everything up. So my book really kind of pulls you to focus on yourself, to be mindful in the moment, and take time for yourself and appreciate the smaller things in life. Even if it's something as simple as a breeze on your face outdoors, or if it's something as complex as watching the waves curl as you're sitting on the beach and the tide is rolling in. My book asks you to just appreciate nature. It doesn't ask for your race, it doesn't ask for your gender. It asks that you be human because that's what it's trying to teach this robot? Humanity.
I think that's beautiful. And, actually, I want to build on that real quick because of the idea behind what Stoicism is. There's the uppercase and the lowercase. And we all think about, you know, just being upright, not thinking about the emotions or anything like that, just being there and going through the motion. But in reality, Stoicism teaches us same thing as everything else that we're embracing in our culture, the art of living with those emotions, understanding them, working our way through them, and using them as a positive influence and a positive change. And I think that, when you combine that with that open heart and that open mentality, as you pick up the book and open even the first page, it really gives you that invitation to not only connect with yourself, but connect with the outside world.
Absolutely. It's a powerful book. For 54 small pages that sit at 8.5 by 11, it is a powerful book, which says a lot. It also has led me to work on the thought of working on book number 2 a lot sooner than I wanted to, because the reading base has asked what happens next. And I think leaving that
Well,
question hanging for just any person is bad.
yeah, but then again, it opens the door to personal discovery because you get to put yourself in the place of that robot and you decide what happens next.
Absolutely.
Part
I
two
think he's
could
going
be
to get a dog.
part two could be a choose your own adventure book.
It could be. But from what I used, I do think I'm going to lean a lot more into nature with the book, because I mean, the only character in the book right now is my robot Bolt. So only thing that really didn't leave the planet is the animals. So I got to start bringing the animals in next.
That's beautiful. I can see that happening. So let people know how they can get a hold of the book, get in touch with you, all those good things.
So you can go to www.jdubsarts.com, spelled JDUBSARTS.com, and that is the hub for all things Dubs. You'll find a main link right on the landing page that brings you to either a paperback version or a hard case laminate if you'd like a hard copy of my book. I have a couple collectors that have already picked up theirs. And then under that, you're going to find more Bolt Voltage stuff. We have the merch shirts, hats, backpacks, socks, a little bit of everything for everybody. And we are also going to be adding to that one of our newest items. It's our biggest thing that went through on Kickstarter. Was we were doing personalized sketches of Bolt themed to you based on your monetary donation. So we're going to make 9 by 12 sketches of the robot personalized to you, available on the website for what I was charging for the Kickstarter campaign. And that'll go towards funding the next book as well, because everybody wants pictures of the robot as them now.
That's awesome. John, thank you so much for taking the time. I'm glad everything worked out. I'm glad you're doing well. And when you get part 2 done, I'm looking forward to connecting again.
Absolutely, man. I'm glad we had a chance to reconnect also. Thank you again for carving some time out for me. And hey, Mike, we made it.
My pleasure. But I got to get back on the trail here in a minute. So we'll talk soon.
Be well.